Another question I see here from Pablo. Is it possible to speak English like an American? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's such a heavy question.
Pablo, how are we supposed to answer
People
this?
do it. I always come back to you could spend a whole lifetime trying to do that, and some people do, but I think it's all about just using it and being clear. And if you get there and you there are some people who can. Like, I've worked with some people, they take like one class and it seems to just like click and then they do it. But I do think it's a journey. And I think as with anything, you're always learning. So there's always going to be something that's not going to be exactly native.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah. That's my 2 cents.
I think even the concept of I think this all goes back to even just the concept of a native speaker, which is a very, in my opinion, kind of a problematic. Like,
yes,
because the way you talk in your first language is different than how your neighbor talks in your first language. Like, everyone speaks
exactly.
a unique language. So, like, we're people, we like to group things. I totally get it. By the way, you can check out the link here. Thank you.
Yeah, and then, I mean, like you said, your neighbor talks differently. Like, we spoke a little bit differently. Well, I lived in California. We spoke differently there. When you live in Chicago, you speak a little differently. When you live in Pittsburgh, you speak a little differently. Like, there's just variations abounding. And then it depends on what group of people you grew up with. If you grew up with people who English wasn't their native language, there are going to be some words that you say that are a little bit different. So that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah. I think what I would say is that if your goal is to have as natural as possible as sound in American English, the whole thing about my channel. So in general, I know a lot of people focus on like mouth position and things like that. My own personal stance is, hey, I think, in my opinion, if I only had time to study 4 things to sound natural in American English, I would study placement. It's like, where are you projecting sound from? So for instance, if you're doing like an E sound, a lot of languages are doing like E, 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 really high, almost nasally or top of throat, back of mouth. Whereas in general, in American English, you get more of an E, E, E sound. So firstly, I would say, hey, if you get the placement right. Second thing is if you get the amount of breath correct, because American English is just letting so much air through. If you want to know one of the biggest differences between British English and American English, it's breath. British English is super closed off, really tight in the throat. American English is trying to engage that diaphragm, trying to get a lot of air through. And by doing that, you also kind of lower the placement as well. So there's 2 things there. The third thing I would study in pitch, because I'll be honest, most of the files we're going to listen to today, there's probably going to be some pitch things that aren't the most natural sounding. It's just the way it is. So trying to increase your range of pitches. And then the fourth thing, American English loves vowel sounds, doesn't really like consonant sounds. So if you can get your vowel sound right in your words, it's going to make everything sound more natural.